You know, every time I go to record, I prefer my hair forward. I don't know if you noticed this. A lot of my videos begin with my hair forward because, you know, actually it doesn't look that great today. But I do that, and by the end of the video, I've like done that, or like that, or like I look like Bill Bailey, you know. But you can only live on a dream of tomorrow. Hi everyone on YouTube, it's Giles here. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. You know, YouTube and their almighty algorithm decided to share my At the Speed of Autism video a little bit more than usual. Like YouTube kind of follows that similar thing that I was moaning about TikTok a few days ago, where like you'll get a couple of views and it'll just be like, I can go no further. And just no one ever sees that video ever again. But this was kind of interesting because it got like a second wind. It went up, it got my usual 30 views, and then all of a sudden it like jumped up to like 300-400, and I got a bunch of new subscribers. So welcome everybody. My name is Giles. I do not have piles. And that's what you need to know. So, continuing the subject of autism, like the thing that's I think that's been on my mind a lot recently is today I wanted to talk to you guys about script writing, which is something that I've done for all of my adult life, and some of my child life as well, and it's something that I've always wanted to talk about here on YouTube, but it's odd because unless you're actually producing the thing that you are writing, there's not a lot to actually talk about if you think about it. Like if you script write a very intricate story, it kind of feels bollocks to talk about what the actual story is about as opposed to making that actual story, and then letting the story speak for itself. But since I've been talking about autism on this channel, it sort of dawned on me, and this ties in with the whole Giles Hellier's dark arts and crafts thing. It dawned on me that instead of talking about the actual stories of the things that I create or that I write for, I'd like to just talk about the idea of creating, of writing, just speaking more broadly about what appeals to me about these sorts of things. And I don't know if that will transition into tutorials or something, but either way, I think it'll be something to do while I'm talking, if you know what I mean. So maybe video logs in the future. I've already done a couple of videos where I'm kind of distracted and talking, and I don't know why I like doing those. I think it's because it's like your brain just goes on like autopilot, if that makes any sense, and it's just like a stream of consciousness while you're preoccupied doing something. But that would be a good opportunity to do any kind of artwork while I'm doing a video log like this. But a lot of this sort of stems from but just so you know, if you don't know, like I produce comics online. I always say don't ask to see them because it's not safe for work stuff. But as well, I kind of have this sort of rule of thumb, which is like, if you wanted to find that sort of thing, you'll find that sort of thing, and it sounds like I'm being like immensely funny about it, but I think it's just because it could raise questions that I just think are irrelevant to answer, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not illegal or immoral or any of that sort of stuff. I just prefer to keep it separate. But I think that's also, and it's probably something we're going to delve into in this video, it's probably also tied in with the fact that it's a mess. It's like a huge, immensely complicated mess that I've been building for like 20 years. And I don't know where to start with it, and that's an odd thing because that's sort of dawned on me the past couple of days. Because I thought to myself, do I not talk about it because it's not safe for work content, and then I sort of like thought, because I was thought to myself, well you've rationalised this. You don't have a problem. Certainly don't have a problem talking about it in person. Is it really that difficult on this platform? And I do think it is the complication of story that makes me not want to talk about it. And I honestly, but before this, this autistic discovery, I wouldn't have considered that. And I think it's because some of the things, some of the endeavours which you can happen upon on account, powered in some way by autism, until you've had that awakening, you don't realise that they're irregular. You just think, well, that's perfectly normal, and then you sort of sit back and go, Jesus Christ. But this whole video was kind of inspired yesterday by what can only describe as a dim light bulb going on. Like since going down the rabbit hole of autism, I've had a lot of light bulbs going on, and it's very positive and it's very inspiring and encouraging, and I feel like mentally I'm like in the best space that I've ever been. But yesterday, a dim light bulb went on. One where, the appeal of this self-discovery is sort of going, oh, that's why that is. Oh, that's why that is. That's why I am like this. Oh, that's why I do this. But then, like yesterday, oh, that's why that is. So, I was thinking about mainstream and my battle thereof. Like, in case you haven't seen the thing behind me, I don't get along with mainstream very well. And I never have, ever. And, and I'm starting to understand that mainstream is sort of, it is entertainment for the masses. It is neurotypical feed, and getting my head around that is difficult because I've sort of, I've spent so many years despising mainstream, and I feel like I can sort of give it some peace now, in some capacity. I mean, it's always going to be a little bit difficult, especially with the rise of what I call mainstream non-mainstream, which is the stuff that thinks it isn't mainstream but totally is. It's usually very heavily tattooed, if you know what I mean. But like I like B movies. I like kitsch stuff. I like retro. I like things that have technically, I guess, got a lot of colour in them, as opposed to the grey blob that we see produced by Hollywood. Where it's just sort of chrome with different colours, different shades of blue. But this extends to opinions I have on a lot of movies that I wish they were. I wish more for them. I always say, like, that superhero movies, the rise of superhero movies is one of the worst things that ever happened to cinema ever. They're all bad, and you don't need to see them because you know what's going to happen in them. But this is what I'm trying to digest myself at the moment. I say what's going to happen with them. I've studied pop culture most of my life without realising why. When in fact, as someone who's neurodivergent, I'm trying to digest and understand what I don't understand. And I believe I've gotten to a point in my life, or rather I reached a point in my life quite a while ago, where I now understand neurotypical entertainment too well, to the point that there is no chance of me ever possibly enjoying it, because as soon as I can watch a trailer and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen in that film. And I think, you probably hear that there's some ire in my tone, and I think that does, it's angered me because it's confused me over the years. And it's similar to the At the Speed of Autism video. It sounds like a brag. It sounds like I'm sort of like, well, you know, I know everything about these neurotypical people. But it's not fun, and it's come from a not fun place. You know, I think this is one of the more difficult parts of neurodiversion. It's neurodivergence. It's because when you don't know that you are neurodivergent, and that you don't know that there's an issue with yourself being on the spectrum, you kind of go into like this defense mode that you don't know what's happening. It's sort of like it's like survival instincts kick in, but you don't exactly know what you're protecting yourself from. All you know is that you've looked in the eyes of several disgruntled people in your time, and you don't quite know why they were disgruntled. And so you just start flicking through whatever resources you can get your hands on, just trying to understand what could have pissed them off. You know, like you were literally like, you're like, I was just being. All I was doing was existing, and it seems to have driven you up the wall somehow. And I don't like the idea of being, you know, driving someone up the wall without knowing what I did. So, you know, best start looking as meticulously as I can through whatever was at hand. In my case, it was pop culture, you know, and but then you know, new things that start to offend you that start to offend other people begin arising, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even see this one coming. And so you extend what you're studying, and then before you know it, that study becomes a passion, and that study just becomes the thing that that excites you, becomes your main interest, and you're doing it even without prompt, even without anybody prompting you to go to start reading up more on it or watching more on this, and before you know it, you end up like me, and you're some kind of I don't know, expert on boring people just to make sure that they can't get you. And for me, script writing became like a massive outlet. The script writing used to be a thing that I would do every day without fail. I've said before, on my computer, I have absolutely thousands and thousands of unfinished projects, and it's all scripts, and it's all conversations with fictional characters. Like I said, I built a whole multiverse. This is where, you know, I was talking earlier about how complicated things get, and it gets very complicated. I was having a chat with a chap yesterday. It's to the point actually where when someone starts asking me directly about it, sometimes I can entertain the conversation for a little bit, but often I will gradually get more and more unresponsive as the conversation goes on. I can't tell if it's because I get exhausted with the conversation because of the sheer scale of what we're talking about, or it's my nerves telling me that no one would be interested in that. And I used to think it was the latter, and I don't think it is. I think it's me aware of how large of the thing is that I'm trying to talk about, that I basically think, well, how long have you got? You know, if you start asking me questions about it. And that's probably the main reason why I don't, why I'm not so open about it. Right now, this is literally this morning, I've come up with a concept to follow one story and developed one story and do it well. But the jury's out on that, because like I said in the Speed of Autism video, my mind moves a mile a minute, and taming this beast is not easy. But I'm going to give it a go. And I think what makes it different now is that I am conscious of the speed of my mind, you know? So hopefully that'll yield something. I'll tell you what, if it does yield something, I'll let you know, because like I said, I don't really care about the not safe for work side of things, but in terms of actually producing something that doesn't look like a scrambled mess of, it's like every single sci-fi concept and comedy concept that you've ever thought of put into a blender. I need some order around here. But so like the scripts that I would write, going back to that, was just like an endless, you know, don't be wrong, that there'll be stories and concepts and characters and art direction and all the rest of it, but it was really, and I say it was past tense, it is, I still do it, and it's just a constant documentation and experimentation of different conversations in life and how they would play out. You know, I think it's why I've always liked like situational comedy, because you build comedy off of the back of situations. You know, like the way in which a conversation transpires is fueled by the matter at hand. And that affects how anybody reacts to stuff and interacts with one another. You know, like when you've got two characters arguing, what if the design of the series or show or whatever it is that they are two partners who are perfect for each other, you know, and you think to yourself, well, if the plan is to stage an argument, say it's a plot device, you know, like you've got to write a plot device where these two break up, and you know the whole resolution is that they get back together again. But to put over the strength of the couple, you want to make sure that they are well connected. So you think, well, we've got to make them perfect for each other, but then you've got to make them argue, and you're like, well, if they're so perfect, how do you make them argue? You know, and then. Sorry, I'm just trying to I'm trying to resolve my own hypothetical. Usually, I think what would be advisable would be to make them a rougher couple. That's just the first thing that comes to mind. You make them rougher people that speak to each other with, you know, they don't mean no harm, but they're just a little bit boisterous in the way they communicate. That way, it's easier to slip them in and out of an argument. But that's just completely on the fly there. But but the point is that all this sort of thinking like that, combined with so it's an odd resource but a very good one. I would combine it with wrestling. Wrestling for me is one of the best educations on conflict that a person can consume. So when it comes to, you know, story writing, I think if you understand the concepts of wrestling and the peak of wrestling, you can craft decent conflicts. And it's simply for the fact that in wrestling, much like comedy, you balance equities, and I'm a person that believes in balance and order, and you know, every kind of entertainment. This is why I hate mainstream stuff. They don't care about balance and they don't care about order, because all they care about is what is the money. So it's sort of like you know, like if hypothetically, if like actually, this one isn't that hypothetical. Like MMA was really popular, like, you know, it kind of it still is, you know. But it was when it had like its resurgence like a year or two ago. All of a sudden, all of Marvel and DC were doing like MMA stuff in their content, and that's terrible balance. It's hugely disrespectful to you. Well, I was going to use the word characters, but they're not characters when you do that. They're tools, you know. And so it's not worth consuming, but it's you know, it's worth consuming if you're well, if you don't care. You know. I do care, but I only care because, like I said, for me, I'm on a constant look for things that stray from that those sort of templates. And you know, like if I sit down and know how a film's going to end, I don't want to watch it. You know, but let's see, how do I get onto this now? I'm trying to get back. See, I was talking about wrestling, wasn't I? Yeah. So wrestling and comedy have a balance to them, in that, like, say for example, there's a classic British show called Open All Hours. Hopefully someone's peeked and gone, "Ooh, he's talking about Open All Hours." It's a great show, and it stars Ronnie Barker and David Jason. Most people will know David Jason from Only Fools and Horses. That's the most popular British show of all time. But the when they threw together Ronnie Barker's character in Open All Hours, and again, if you haven't seen the show, he is a miserly, penny pinching, strict, grumpy old bark. And when they designed this character on paper, they figured he was immensely dislikable. Absolutely nothing to identify. You know, he's just an unpleasant person. And although you've got the support of David Jason's character, Granville, they had to sort of weigh out, will Granville really be enough to ground this unlikable, mean individual who's supposed to be a lead? And someone had the absolute genius concept to make Arkwright, that's Ronnie Barker's character, have a stutter, a quite serious stutter. And it was an implementation of vulnerability to this character, a sort of an auxiliary piece of humanity, to ground him, so that when he has his rule of the land, because he owns the shop, the sitcom is about a shop which he owns, and he's the overhead of Granville, who is his nephew, so he's very sort of he's a very dominant character, but he has his stutter. The shop, there's always going to be difficulties to implement there. He has a love interest called Nurse Gladys, who does like him, but she doesn't like the fact that he's a miser and wants him to sort of loosen up a little bit. So they introduce all these elements to soften him and to basically make sure that although he's a very powerful, very dominant character, you take him back a little bit so that he can have humility. I always say one of the most powerful things any character can portray is humility. And not to get too political now, but it's one of the reasons why women have quite a hard time in comedy, because if men are writing for them, men like them because men like women. But if a woman's writing for women, women also like women and they want them doing well. So both potential writers for women don't want to hurt them and don't want to humiliate them in any way. And that makes female characters unrelatable by everyone. You know, we're talking statistically, not generally, obviously. Don't start going, oh, but this one is good, this one is good. So it's sort of, people do that whole thing, like, are women funny and stuff like that, and of course they bloody are. But you have to be a little bit careful about who's writing for them, because like there's a reason why you look at like The Simpsons, for example. People identify with Homer because he's an idiot, and that's not because we're all idiots, but it's because we are all prone to idiocy. Like, men and women alike identify with Homer more than they do Marge, because Marge just doesn't have that much folly behind it. I think they started implementing more the humility in Marge like later in the series, But when that's a good thing to do. But I think in terms of volume, I think Homer sort of he kind of steals the spotlight in that sense. But like one of the things I always wanted to do was to write more like comedy for women, because I don't know, like it just seemed like a massive open market. Like I'm like, people don't tread there because they're too busy trying to be nice to them. And it's sort of like, but the funny thing is, you see the frustration of women in this subject. That like they're a bit tired of being treated like they're made of glass. But I don't know. But this is all off the back of just non-stop writing, consuming sitcoms. It's sort of like you consume as much as you can of like TV shows and stuff, but at a certain point you start to get frustrated that other questions aren't being answered, and so you sit down and you just go to answer them yourself, which is how I got in, so engrossed in script writing, and it seemed more about experimentation and discovery and learning sort of how logical reactions would occur. Every time I sit down to write something, I'm presenting it with an event, and it's a case of like, not only how would the characters react to it, but how would they as characters react to it? So it's not just a case of people reacting to this, they're all different characters individually, and so you see which character, how their reaction would relate to their specific character. But this is sort of it's a coping mechanism that I've built over the years. Now, I would be very interested, if I know a lot of my new subscribers, you're on the spectrum as well. I would be really interested to know what your coping mechanism has been over the years, and your, sort of how you've drawn, how you sort of, if you need to do some kind of study to society, I mean, it might be completely different. I think if you find out you're on the spectrum from a younger age, maybe there's not as much need to study. You don't have that need to defend yourself so much because you already know what's going on. But I'd be really curious to know sort of to know if you've had any coping mechanisms or ways of studying what you studying while you didn't understand, and if that wasn't an issue for you, if you sort of I don't know what you would do in place of it. Is there a sort of if you knew you were on the spectrum from a young age and you didn't have to defend, feel the need to build up and study that defense in those terms, I'd be really curious to know sort of what if you did something instead. If there was, if those blues were replaced with a different kind of blues. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Do you know what? I really felt like I went off-road in this video, and I have absolutely no idea if it was good or bad. But we'll see. We'll see. I think, off the back of that video that suddenly got oddly popular, it's kind of following that trail of thoughts, because it's all about the speed of which my mind will do stuff. But yes, I look forward to your comments, which I'm getting lots of, and I'm enjoying them. So thanks very much for that. And I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. See you later.